Alright guys, today we're going to do our first repair on the Maserati Biturbo. It's going to be changing the ignition switch. So currently the only issue with the ignition switch is sometimes when you turn off the car the engine stays running. So something in there is not closing the circuit, it's keeping it open, and you could literally take the key out of the ignition and the car will stay running. When that happens, I basically just put it in third and let it stall out. That's not really ideal. Now the good thing about the ignition switch on these cars is normally when you change the ignition switch on the car, you know, that one key opens the door locks, the trunk, everything. So you kind of have a key for the ignition that does everything. Now you got to worry about, are you going to get another key or change out the locks on all of the doors to match that key. It's a big nightmare. The good thing about this car is the ignition key does only the ignition, nothing else, and then you had separate keys for the doors, separate key for the trunk. So this is what the ignition switch looks like. It's pretty straightforward. This is a brand new part for Maserati. I got through this from Auto Italia. I'll put the link in the description. Great source for Maserati Biturbo parts. And here's the new ignition. It comes with 2 keys, and this again is a brand new part, not a used part. If you buy a used part, you could probably buy it for, I've seen them on eBay anywhere from 50 to 80 to 100 bucks, 125 bucks. This one was 250 bucks, but it's brand new. I don't have to worry about it. Comes with 2 new keys. And now the only thing that's difficult about changing this is when I remove the shroud around the steering column. This is like a security feature. These bolts from the factory are designed to be torqued until the heads snap off. That's like a safety mechanism, so that then somebody can't go in there and try to steal the car, because this is also a steering lock. It's not just the ignition switch, also locks the steering. My understanding is that from the factory, whoever was assembling these cars, they didn't always torque these to the point where they broke the heads off. I guess they just weren't aware, or they weren't trained properly on what to do there. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that my car still has these heads, because if not, I have to like do the whole drill out the stud and use an extractor to try to remove that bolt. So first step, let's get to the car, remove the shroud around the steering column, and see what we're working with. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is we disconnected the battery. We don't want to have any kind of short because we're touching the electrical system. And this car has tilt steering, which is basically just this thumb screw here, or knob, that you loosen up, and this drops down. You can see that'll just give us a little bit more space. And let me get a view from underneath. You could see it looks like there's 1, 2, and then back here is another 2. 1, 2. I think it's Phillips head screws, so we're gonna try and just remove those 4 screws to see if this is almost like a clamshell. There's a top section, the bottom section, to see if that opens it up, or if there's any additional fasteners holding it in. Alright guys, so once you remove the fourth screw, this just drops down. You do have to be careful. There's a switch here that has this these 3 wires connected to it. Make sure you remember the orientation. This is switch. A lot of people don't even know what this does, but this is in Europe, when you park overnight on a dark corner, you're supposed to leave one of your taillights on overnight, and it's almost like a safety feature, and that's what this does. You could either leave the left or the right on, and then the middle it's off, but that's what this does. In any case, I just took the cover off, and just looking very quickly, and I wish I had done this before I ordered the new ignition switch. I could already tell this wire is loose. So the solder on that wire completely came off. I could also tell, so this part does not look bad. I'm thinking I might just resolder. Resolder that wire and see if it works. Yeah, let me see if I could take the top cover off here. Gotta wiggle it out. The funny part about these is my 2003 Maserati has the same exact design, but it's made out of the cheapest plastic possible. This is actually better quality, and people make fun of these Biturbo cars for being such badly built, but at least for these components, they're way better than the modern Maseratis, that the plastic is so brittle that once you take it apart once, it starts to break. This is almost like it's got a molded rubberized interior piece, so they put a lot of effort into this little thing, believe it or not. But big difference in quality from 80s to now, which is kind of absurd. But so looking at the ignition switch, guess what? They did not shear off the heads off the bolts, which is very good news for me to remove that. So let's gonna put the camera down, gonna take a quick look to see if I see any other things that stand out at me that might be faulty, and then I'll decide whether or not to keep the part or install this new one. Alright guys, so I removed my steering wheel just so I have easier access to what I need to move here. Kind of a scary thing. All of the little Allen heads that were holding the steering wheel were all loose. They were just like finger tight, which I didn't realize. Very scary. None of them have a thread locker, so that is a little bit scary. But in any case, now I have better access. I follow these 2 main cables that went over here to the right and down here where we have the door lock switches. Your car might not have a power door lock. This car only had power door lock for the passenger, not for the passenger side, nothing else. It was just so you wouldn't have to reach over to unlock the door for your passenger. So now that I have unplugged both sockets, I didn't need to unplug this one. This one is for the switchgear here. I only needed this one that has a smaller plug with the heavier wires. But in any case, now I think all I need to do is undo these 2 bolts that were never sheared off from the factory, this one and this one, and hopefully that will remove this strap here, and I could pull down the ignition switch from the bottom. So another scary thing, these were practically just finger tight, which I'm assuming allowed for vibration of the whole ignition lock or ignition switch, and probably what led to the solder points to eventually break. Oh, so that just dropped down. So there you go. Ignition switch is out. So let's see if we could look at the solder points and repair this one instead of using the new one. Okay, so we got the ignition switch out. These bolts, by the way, are 13 millimeter. You could see they never torqued these to the point where the head shears off. See, it's got a pinch point there. It's supposed to snap off. It's a safety, not a safety, but a security feature, so nobody could steal the car. Obviously they didn't do that at the factory, and I hear this is very common. But I didn't expect it to be almost finger tight. Like, it was no effort at all to remove. And you could kind of see this is this little peg here. That's the actual steering lock. So when you stick the key inside, that goes in, and it allows you to turn the steering. And then when you take the key out, it pops back out. And here is what I think is the issue. This smaller brown wire, look, there's no solder on it, or the solder broke, so I could actually pull it out. So I think at some point this was making bad contact, which allowed the circuit to not close for some reason. So I'm gonna solder this, and I'm gonna put it back in the car and see if that fixes the problem, and maybe I could return the new ignition switch I bought. Alright guys, so I resoldered all of the joints, not just the one that I knew was loose. And then I also noticed that on the plug, you see you got these female terminals that they push in and they clip on. They have like a little barb. This one here, the brown with the black stripe, was not in all the way. Which I wonder if that would have made a bad contact with the main plug. So that could have also been the cause of the issue, even though that wire soldered was the soldering was not broken on the ignition switch, but maybe it wasn't making a contact here. So I'm gonna try to put this back in and see if we can fix the problem. I'm also gonna put some thread locker on these, and I'm gonna tighten them to the point where I know it's secure, but I don't want to break these off in case this didn't fix it and I still have to remove the this ignition switch anyway. I don't want to shear off these bolts, so just gonna put some thread locker and see if that works for me. So install the ignition switch. Again, I just tightened these to the point where I thought they were pretty tight, but I didn't torque them to the point where the head sheared off. So now you just got to route the wires. The way they were, they come out on the left side here, and they wrap around the column and they go to the right side of the column under there, and basically it's the plugs under here. I'll show you, I'll try to get a shot of that from the underneath. But also I noticed that when I try to do the high beams, which on this car is you go down like this to do the high beams, the windshield wipers go on. So I was trying to see if this had a bad ground, but the ground wires are all pretty connected, pretty well connected. There's no loose wires, so it must just be a grounding issue. That's notorious for these cars. Like the headlights, for example, the grounding points are on the body near the headlight buckets, so I just got to make sure that that doesn't have corrosion to see if I could fix that. So I'll try to get a shot from underneath so you can see where these plugs go. Alright, so I know it's a weird shot, but so they wrap around to the right side of the column, and you can see here are the female connectors. So keep in mind, this white wire I have, it's tapped for one of my gauges, so you won't have to deal with that. But so and again, you didn't have to unplug this one. This one was for the turn indicator. I removed it just because it was easier to remove it to get access to this one. Alright. Make sure that these are connected all the way, and this is the one. Sorry, this is for the turn indicators, the bigger plug that you did not have to remove. I removed it just to get out of the way of this one. And this one is for the ignition, the smaller one. And I just want to make sure all of these wires are pushed in, because this is the one that had one of the terminals not pushed in all the way into the socket. Alright, so just pop these back into place. Reconnect the HVAC, and which actually it's just this piece here. And we are ready to go. Alright, so everything's connected back up. I did not put the shroud yet because I want to make sure this works, because if it doesn't, I don't want to have to remove all that shroud and everything. So let's just start it up. I reconnected the battery. So let's just see. See if the wipers are on. Alright, see how slow they are. Anyway, let's go. Run a little bit before I turn it off. I don't like to just start a car and then turn it off, because it dumps a lot of fuel into the engine, and then when you turn it off, that fuel sits there and it could wash away the cylinder wall. So I like to let it run a little bit. So let me just run it for a few minutes before I try to turn it off. Problem persists. Alright guys, so unfortunately I thought I was filming, but I ran out of battery on the camera, and I did not capture the last part of the video, which is basically after I installed the ignition switch that I had resoldered all the connections. I tested it, and the issue didn't go away. The engine kept running. I did notice that the cylinder itself had like a 1/16 of an inch of play internally, so I'm thinking maybe the fault is inside the cylinder, not just those connection points or soldering points. In any case, the part you missed in the video is I remove that ignition switch again, and then I installed the brand new one that I had bought. So that's where the video leaves off. So sorry for the interruption, and here's the rest of the video. Alright guys, so I got the new ignition switch mounted up. The car is running. When I reconnected the switch, I forgot to turn off the battery, so the car didn't want to start, which scared me a little bit. I tried to see if maybe I blew a fuse in the new Holtec system. That's the little fuse box or relay box that controls ignition and injection. But everything seems to be okay. I disconnected the battery for 45 minutes, and then I reconnected it, and I guess it reset the computer. So now, moment of truth. There you go. So I guess this worked. One thing I did notice is here, this part of the ignition switch, if I wobble it, it doesn't move at all. And on the old one, it was pretty wobbly, this part here that has the wires coming out of it. So I'm wondering, maybe that's what was wrong, just the play, something internally was not making contact where it should. So at this point, I'm just gonna put the shrouds back and the steering wheel back. I don't need to film that because obviously it's just a reverse of how it went on, just the clamshell with 4 screws on the bottom, and then my Momo steering wheel, it's just these 6 countersunk screws, and they're all done. All right, hope this video helps some of you if you have the same issue. And again, I thought soldering that loose wire would have fixed it, but apparently it didn't. So I think the issue is internally. So thanks for watching. All right, guys, so this is the end of the video. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.